Okay, so moving on, the first thing that I wanted to talk about, or a little bit about, was Tidestone Solutions. So who are we? And I'll give you a very brief overview about that. So we've been in business for over 20 years. We've been delivering accounting software and ERP solutions to our customers, where we are particularly focused on integrating those applications with other databases, integrating with Excel, tailoring it to meet the needs of the business, and yet we have a lot of breadth of experience doing this across a lot of industries. So a lot of the standard tools that we use over and over again. We're very existing customer focused. We don't go out and sell a lot of software. Our goal is to acquire long-term customers and then to help those customers become self-sufficient with their systems. And then our role is to help them continually improve their process by helping them with their business, improving their business process, getting better reporting. And so that is our goal, is to have those long-term relationships. We are local, but we have had referrals across the country, and so we do have customers actually across the country. I'm having a little bit of difficulty here with my PowerPoint presentation. Bear with me just 1 minute if you would, please. Okay, so what you should expect from this session is a solid understanding of cloud computing, some best practices on how cloud computing is used for finance departments. And I just want to be clear, this isn't a sales pitch. We're trying to provide some education and not trying to sell you on anything. So as you all know, the cloud has been around for a long time. We all use it in a variety of ways. Certainly with our mobile devices, the internet, social media and blogging has certainly become a big part of the cloud. And one interesting thing about the cloud is we really are shifting the power from sellers to buyers. I mean, think about things like travel sites and community-based websites. So there's a lot of transparency going on. The goal here obviously is flexible access anytime, anywhere, from your office, from your home, from your mobile device. From a business perspective, we've actually seen a burst of companies that are building applications in the cloud, and probably your business today is using some of these business solutions. Certainly, most organizations today have a cloud backup system. Even if nothing else is in the cloud and everything else is on-premise, most businesses at least have backups in the cloud. So really the question, today is what's going on in the world of finance? There's so many opportunities and innovation. Let's talk about the definition of cloud. So we have infrastructure as a service. So that's just really the storage. That's really the cloud backup. Then we also have platform as a service as well. So that is really the availability for people to program applications. Today we're going to be talking specifically about software as a service. But just know that it's not, when we talk about cloud, it can be confusing because we've got infrastructure, we have platform, and we have software. Now there's one other thing that I wanted to mention here relating to these definitions that is important. There's also hosting. So when we talk about hosting applications, just know that there is a difference between a hosted application, which is an application that you buy, and then you decide that you want to have it either in a private cloud or in your own personal cloud. And all that really is buying the software and having it hosted somewhere else. That's very different than the software as a service that we're going to be talking about today, which is well, I say it's very different. It's just different. It's similar. Today we're talking about software as a service, where the software is actually not purchased by you. It's really purchased as a per user per month basis. So that's different than purchasing the application and then putting it up in the cloud somewhere. So there's business to consumer and business to business services that are now using cloud computing. And the software as a service really is just a subset of that. But there are many mature software as a service applications out there. And today, we're talking specifically about the finance department and accounting software. So the idea here is that the economics of purchasing a software as a service really end up being better than an on-premise solution. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So what's driving cloud computing? Clearly, folks are looking at the return on investment and finding that there's more cost-effective return on investment with software as a service. The ability to have anytime, anywhere access for your employees, for your stakeholders, for managers, really high value. Organizations that have limited IT resources are certainly looking at cloud computing because it takes some back-end support when you have on-premise solutions. Now, we've talked to organizations that have full IT resources, and they have capacity with those resources, but rather than use those IT resources to do things like install the software, install some updates, put in some new hardware, they're using those IT resources in a different way. They're actually deploying those more effectively for things like business intelligence reporting. So it's not necessarily a downsizing of IT resources if you already have them. It's a better utilization of them. So faster time to deploy, faster time to value. And what that means is that you no longer have to think about, do I have the right hardware? Do I have compatible software? Do I have the resources to do the installation? Because you don't have to think about that with software as a service. It's the vendor who's thinking about that, and all you're doing is logging into the internet, which makes it easier and less. It makes it easier to deploy. And then there's some some myths around the fact that, well, I can't customize my solution if I put it in the cloud, but that's actually not true. Couple of important points here. So better security and operations than you can otherwise afford. This is probably one of the #1 driving factors. Organizations cannot afford the security, the firewalls, the IT resources necessary to make sure that your applications are as secure as what a vendor who's offering a software as a service can do. And then, and here's one of the big differences too. You're turning capital expenditures by buying an on-premise solution into operational expenditures. So rather than you thinking about those capital funds, you're now thinking about what does it cost me every month, how many users do I have, and therefore what is it costing me? You can scale those users up, you can scale those users down. Okay. So cloud computing, turning the capital into the operation, a little bit more about that. With the on-premise model, you have upfront license fees that you pay for. You typically have an 18% plus annual maintenance fee. And with that maintenance fee, you typically get upgrades, service packs, maybe some support incidents. But that's an annual maintenance fee. And then the customer bears all of the IT costs and risk. You have to put it on-premise on your own hardware. There's typically 18 to 24-month release cycles for on-prem software. And then the customer, of course, pays for upgrades, the upgrade costs, and the risks associated with that every 18 to 24 months or however often they upgrade. And then there's this notion that a vendor will ship the software and forget about it. I think that's a little harsh. It's probably not completely true, but it's point well taken. In the cloud model, you pay for what you use. The annual maintenance fees are included. All of the IT back end is the vendor's problem, and the vendor also, in terms of the release cycles, the vendors are typically doing monthly updates to the software. And one of the nice things about, I will boast on the Intact side, one of the nice things about Intact is that you have the ability to turn on those changes if you want to, or not. And there are some organizations that don't want new features. They want to stay with the original software for a longer period of time, and so you have that flexibility. Regarding the upgrades, the vendor handles those. They're done automatically, and then you determine when you want to turn them on. And then the vendor is absolutely accountable for the, shipping the software and making sure that you're happy with it. Okay, some of the top concerns about cloud computing. Probably the number one concern certainly is the security. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but again, can a small to medium-sized businesses really have a secure back end? Probably not more so than a software as a service vendor, and we're going to look at some of those characteristics. So some of the other concerns that we've heard from our customers, certainly integrating. I talked about the fact that there is this myth that you can't integrate with other applications, but you really can. Folks are saying they can't find what they need, or it's difficult to sort of navigate. Performance is a big consideration. I think that, and again, there's a myth that maybe you're not going to have access to it when you want to. It's going to be down. It's going to be slow. Those are all legitimate concerns, and concerns that you need to think about and understand when you partner with a software as a service. So we've talked about, we've defined infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, talked a little bit about how hosting is different than that. The drivers for why people are going to the cloud. We've looked at the capital expenditures versus operational, and then some of the concerns folks have. Now we're going to talk specifically about, why finance? What's in it for finance? And this is what we are asking of our customers. What are the main reasons? Why are you thinking about moving to the cloud? And this really helps us determine the potential that these customers have for adopting a cloud solution. Anytime, anywhere. I mean, that is the name of the game here. So if folks are looking for that, even if it's just one aspect of their business, and we're going to talk a little bit about time and expense. You know, web-based time and expense is an application that a lot of businesses have been wanting to move to. That anytime, anywhere, let people get their time in, let people enter their expenses. Another reason, you know, they want to save on costs. They want to know what their costs are month to month as opposed to what it's going to cost them over time for things like upgrades and hardware. Do they need it to be, you know, fast deployment? Do they need better security? Do they need all of these things? But these are the main things to think about. So in this slide, what we're looking at is the fact that there's, you know, finance teams are saying these are the important factors for us. We have to provide financial management to decision makers. We have to be GAAP compliant. And what this graph is actually showing us, it's a little dated, but it shows us the importance on one bar, and then it shows the effectiveness of their current solution. And on a scale of 1 to 5, how important these things are. I think, you know, one that's particularly interesting to me is the optimizing business processes. I mean, that's a really important thing for a finance department to do. They don't want to be doing duplicate entry. They want to create some efficiencies with their staff. They want integrated solutions. They don't want to be maintaining a lot of spreadsheets. And but just, you know, look at the effectiveness. The effectiveness is so low. And it's interesting to me because that's actually what we help people do, is improve their business process. So the next slide actually shows us with software as a service what benefits they actually get from that. So you can see with the red outline bar, again, you know, this is a little bit of an older slide. I'd like to see this updated, but you can see the benefits that folks were communicating after using a cloud-based solution. So here are the advantages, all things that we've talked about. What's important here is the, you know, gaining visibility, gaining real-time visibility, as a matter of fact. You know, freeing yourself from hardware and software implementation and using, you know, your IT resources to do things like install software. Actually, you know, the ability for you to have the time and your staff to have the time through efficiencies to actually be focusing more on the business mission rather than focusing on duplicate data entry. Ensuring compliance and automating internal controls, and obviously saving, you know, costs through operational efficiencies. So I like this slide. This is a, you know, the left-hand side actually shows management by spreadsheet, which so many small to medium-sized businesses are doing. It's manually intensive, it's prone to error, and there are some really sophisticated spreadsheets out there that we've seen our, you know, our clients have built in their legacy systems because that's what they had to do in order to link some data. But then they've got these applications that are all in silos and none of them integrate, and folks are feeling like they're basically trapped in these individual silos. With a cloud solution, you've basically got everybody, using the same system. The finance department is using their day-to-day applications, they're getting reports. Management is managing by dashboards and key performance indicators. They've got access to it 24/7. And not only do you have efficiency in the finance department, you have efficiency throughout the organization because managers and stakeholders are getting what they need. So we talked a little bit about one of the popular software as a service applications is time and expense. And this is just a good slide to confirm that, being able to capture billable and non-billable expenses via the web allows you to get a process together whereby people are entering their time once and then it's getting approved rather than somebody's entering it, somebody's approving it, somebody's entering it in the real system, and then it's getting paid. This is a one-stop shop. Time gets entered, expenses get entered, it gets approved. It's in the back office accounting software. You know what your cash situation looks like. You know what your expense situation looks like. And it's all done real time. Consolidation is another good example. For companies that have multiple companies, multiple entities, all of this data resides in one place, in the cloud. And so consolidation becomes much easier rather than with an on-premise solution. Often there's some manipulation that needs to occur to bring different company databases together to do a consolidation process. Another benefit is the ability for you to collaborate with your CPA firm. So you can give your CPA user access to your software, and rather than have them come on site, they can do the work remotely if that's what you'd like, which of course can reduce fees. And for those organizations who use their accounting firm regularly, for the smaller businesses, if there's some write-up work that's being done or some journal entries that the CPA firm is doing, they have access to it from anywhere. So we've gone through cloud computing for finance. Now we're going to talk, we're going to talk about the risk and the security. So this is the question that we ask our customers that relates to their concerns about adopting the cloud. So, and here's what we hear. Security and privacy is probably the #1 issue that they have, they're concerned about. And certainly the fact that it's a big change is a big deal. That's why a lot of companies are actually, they're starting small, they're phasing in. They're doing things like having their email hosted as phase 1. Or if they have a CRM system, for example, a customer relationship management system, those applications have been cloud-based applications for quite a long time now. So companies can get their feet wet by starting small and using an application that's important to them. Email, for example, is a great example, and then once they get comfortable with that, move into something like, their back office accounting. It's important to note that the selection process is the same, really, with an on-premise and a cloud solution. You go through the same motions. You get your requirements together, you talk to your team about their priorities, and make sure that all of the top challenges are identified so that when you do get a new system, you're taking those into consideration, and those really become your success criteria. So you may be creating an RFI or an RFP. you get a demo, you calculate your return on investment. All of those things are the same. But there are a couple of things that are different. So not only are you looking at product fit and an implementation success criteria and the quality of the support, you're also looking at the track record of the vendor who's supplying you that software as a service. You're looking at their infrastructure and their security, and you're looking at what their ongoing business practices are and how that relates to you. And only then will you really be able to calculate your return on investment and your total cost of ownership. Those are really important factors to consider. So evaluating cloud vendors, you certainly you should assume that they are going to have better infrastructure than what you can have. For example, most of them have, and Intact, for example, has a tier 1 data center. And, you know, the tiers are just a way to measure the data center performance, the investment, and the return on investment. You also have the idea that you need to think about your costs, the costs for this data center, so not your cost, but the cost for the data center, are being spread across thousands of organizations. And that's really the only way that they can make these, have the per user per month fees be reasonable, is because they have large volumes of customers. Other things to consider there, obviously, the SAS 70, all relates to security, all things that folks need to be thinking about when they're thinking about their cloud vendor. There's typically no problems with folks when they're thinking about the economics or the ability to deploy a cloud solution quickly, and the fact that it's simple, and the fact that you can be pretty creative with it. But most folks are thinking that their number one, the number one factor for them as it relates to on-premise is they trust their situation better than they would trust a cloud provider. And again, that's a hurdle to get over, but it's also really important to consider, and that's why a service level agreement is important for you to understand what the vendor is going to provide for you. Because the service level agreement is, in fact, the basis for your relationship. So a service level agreement with an on-premise vendor is pretty straightforward. You get a number of support incidents per year. They tell you how long. It's what your guaranteed response time is typically for those support incidents. You might get service packs and updates. But with a cloud provider, your service level agreement really is all about your relationship and your expectations about what you're going to get and how you're going to get this software delivered to you. All right, so control. This really speaks to the fact that you have the control as part of the service level agreement. You need to make sure you have the control to get a response time that is appropriate for you. Make sure that there's disaster recovery, that the vendor has a good disaster recovery plan, and that the system is going to be available when you need it. The tier one the tier 1 vendors, I believe, are at a 90. I think they're somewhere around a 97 or 98% uptime, and I would have to look at that. But that's what you need to find out as part of your service level agreement. right? Make sure that you can get access to your data when you want it. If you want it back, if you want to move your data from one cloud to another, if you want to move your data from the cloud to an on-premise, you need to understand how you can do that and if the vendor will assist you. And if they will assist you, is it going to cost you any money? You want to make sure that you're evaluating your business risk. You want to look for guarantees on uptime and even money-back guarantees. So again, this is all about you having control through your service level agreement. Privacy is actually another issue as well. You should also understand if there is a privacy breach, what are the policies in place if there is such a breach? So penalties and rewards, make sure that you understand whether you'll be issued a credit should certain things occur, whether that's uptime or privacy breaches or performance issues, and that all is part of that published service level agreement. There are organizations who actually publish them, and so not only do you want to look at what they've published in addition to the service level agreement that you've created with the vendor, so that you know what their standards are. So this is a slide that shows you there's an Amazon service level agreement SLA and an intact SLA here. These are published and you can read them, and then you can certainly modify them as you need to when you enter into a relationship with them. So the whole idea here is that you've got the power in this relationship to negotiate what is important for you. Cloud vendors are actually pretty aggressive these days. They're all about wanting to get case studies published. It's a pretty competitive market, so they're really working hard to get these case studies and these customer references and testimonials, which really put customers in the driver's seat in terms of negotiating their agreements. So this slide actually talks a little bit about total cost of ownership, and I do like the fact that in an on-premise environment, I like the fact that it lists here what your ongoing costs are versus in a cloud environment what your ongoing costs are. Clearly, cloud computing is a simpler model to deploy from a business standpoint. And as I said before, and I can't stress it enough, not only do you not necessarily have the IT resources. If you don't have the IT resources on staff, cloud computing is a great option for you. If you do have them on staff, think about utilizing them differently for better purposes. Same thing with the finance department staff. You may not want to downsize your finance department. You may not need to. What you can do is utilize them in a way that's more beneficial to the organization. But in a cloud computing environment, you're not talking about hardware, you're not talking about IT personnel or maintenance. You're really just talking about your monthly subscription fee per user per month, some training costs, and some configuration costs. So the cloud is here, the future. We know we're going to be in a close to 100% situation in the near future. It's coming. It's going to take a while, but we're certainly shifting the costs and the risks to vendors in the cloud as opposed to on-premise. So, some of our key insights. We just talked about the fact that cloud computing is here. We know that. Significant benefits for the finance department in terms of productivity and in terms of total cost of ownership and return on investment. Fast and easy to get started. I do want to say that while it's fast and easy to get started because there's not the need for servers, workstations, IT resources to do installations, that's what makes it fast and easy. Businesses still need to focus on implementing the software in a way that meets their needs. So they may have some unique business challenges that when the implementation occurs, that is no different than being in an on-premise solution. If you have complex business processes, you have them in on-prem or in cloud. So the fast and easy relates to the infrastructure. But what's really important here is that you do want to do your homework regarding the service level agreement, what you're going to get, what you can expect, and whether there are any credits, penalties, and whether you can take your data if you need to. Those types of things all through that SLA. So we can open up the webinar for questions now. If anybody has any questions, I think what I will do is I will unmute you, and then we will see if do we have any questions? No? Anybody want to throw anything out at me? Okay. We have a quiet group. Let me just make sure that my microphone is turned up here. Not my microphone, my speaker. And it is. Okay. Well, thank you all for attending the webinar today. Here's my contact information. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email if you have any questions. And we will be posting the webinar to our website if you want to listen to it or have some of your other team listen to it. And thanks a lot for participating. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.